I'm sorry, the million-plus dead Iraqis and our thousands of dead U.S. troops, 1,000 in Afghanistan dead, 5,000 in Iraq. Their sacrifice and their courage has to be admired. But I'll tell you, no preemptive war in history has been a just war. When the British attacked the colonies, it was unjust. Okay? George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, they were the insurgents. That's why we have 4th of July. That's what the Star-Spangled Banner is about. That's what our troops fought for in World War II. That's what they fought for in the other wars this country's had. But there's no doubt this country's been taken over by foreign corporate interest, and some troops are now serving their 7th tour in Iraq or Afghanistan, respectively. Most of them a mix. We've never made troops serve more than 1 tour, 1 year. Not in World War II, not in Vietnam, not anywhere, because it screws them up with 1 tour. Around 30%, 35% statistically end up having real mental problems. You make them serve 2, 3, 4, 5 tours, you're talking more than half the troops are just complete basket cases, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, but that's how we support them. We put a little American flag made by Chinese slaves that's deindustrializing our country out on our front lawn, and we walk up to troops and say, oh, thank you. Thank you. You served 4 or 5 tours over there. Thank you. And then you give them horrible government-run health care, which we're now all going to be getting. And again, it's just hype. You know, we need patriots here in the Republic to save the United States from massive taxes and regulations and surveillance and the Patriot Act now being used against U.S. citizens. We need to realize what Memorial Day is all about, what the flag is all about. It's about the Declaration of Independence. It's about the Bill of Rights. It's about the Constitution. It's very simple. We all are warlike because we instinctively, our ancestors wouldn't have survived if they wouldn't have protected the village, the hut, the region when invaders would come and take over areas. No matter where you live, you've dealt with the same situation. So that's why we're warlike, we're aggressive, we instinctively honor people that put on uniforms and march off to fight. But in any war, there's the invader, and there's those that are fighting for their lives. Now, why does the United States invade country after country? Because we're not the United States anymore, folks. We're a province of offshore banks. We're their muscle. And now Geithner has announced in China, I have the Reuters article, that America is done. He told them, hey, you can't count on the U.S. U.S. taxpayers are tapped out, and they don't have money anymore. All right, thanks for joining us. I'm going to cover this more later in the broadcast, and we're also going to open the phones up at 888-201-2244, 888-201-2244. But please have a good phone if you call in. Again, we can't take calls that are Skype or that you can't understand. You've got to have a good phone line to call in, 888-201-2244. Geithner tells Europe to emulate China on growth, and in here he says U.S. consumers are going to be less a source of demand for the world in the future. And then if you read the full quotes, he says that we're tapped out, that we are too deep in debt, and that our economy is not going to be growing for a long time, just like Japan. Now, meanwhile, they're on our news telling us that our economy is doing great, that if you think the economy's doing bad, you're a conspiracy theorist, that why unemployment's at 9.8%, all the private economists say over 22%, and they're just telling us that good times are here. They're not around the corner. No, they're here. And they've got a whole bunch of new income taxes and sales taxes and carbon taxes, and all these states are going bankrupt, but don't worry, the private central banks have got more fiat made-up money to loan them. And Spain just lost its AAA credit rating. Moody's is saying the U.S. is about to lose its AAA credit rating. And so the U.S. won't just pay 5 to 10% to borrow money from the private Federal Reserve out of nowhere, the private bankers that own the whole world because of this fraud. No, now we're going to get a worse rating. We might pay 20%. Why, someday we'll be like Nigeria, where everything goes to interest to the bankers. They just own everything. This is Bernie Madoff taking over the planet. That's all this is. And I want you to know why things are going to get worse and worse and worse and worse for you. Because they're going to turn on the mainstream television, and they're going to tell you, oh, my gosh, 3 Hollywood stars, Linkletter died, and Art Linkletter, and, all these other people died. What are we going to do? And, oh, Lindsay Lohan's in trouble with the judge. My goodness. I'm sorry, you will not hear about Dennis Hopper here on the show, even though I did interview Dennis Hopper once. I've never aired the interview. People in the office have seen it a couple years ago. We were digging around, and they're like, well, why don't you air this? And I have my reasons. I'll just leave it at that. Now I've done it. I've got to probably tell the Dennis Hopper story. But see, you're more interested in that. Humans are designed to be tribal and only care about local stuff and, ooh, what the celebrity's doing. What Chief Big Feather's up to. And Chief Big Feather is the Hollywood peacocks up there. But we've got to dig the interview out now. People won't believe it. I guess they will. I mean, I've interviewed quite a few people. Yeah, I saw this on British TV. I saw it on Russian, Japanese. This is big news all over the world. But here in the U.S., it's just buried in there. That Geithner was in China for 3 days. He's now left, reportedly. And this is the former Goldman Sachs exec who was running the New York Fed and swindled everybody with Paulson, now running things for Obama. But let's go ahead and just play a clip of what foreigners are saying, interviewing Americans. Here it is.
U.S. Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner has advised Europe to look to China as the world's economic powerhouse, saying America has lost its lead. While investigative journalist Webster Tarpley says the country's flawed financial system is to blame.
The U.S. economy, to the extent that we still have one, is based on the New Deal model, which is a highly regulated kind of industrial capitalism. And this is what we had starting in 1933. Now, for the past 40 years, since the coming of Nixon, more or less, reactionary Republican administrations have been steadily dismantling that entire edifice. So now we've got no more regulation, and we've got no more industry. So what we've got left is this casino, gambling, speculative derivatives paradise that Geithner thinks is so great. And, of course, that's not viable.
Okay.
So I wouldn't call
the rest of the interview is up on Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com if you want to go watch it. I respectfully disagree with Tarpley on a few points because I want this to be truthful. And I'm not saying he was being untruthful. It's just that let's flesh this out. Both political parties got involved to get rid of Glass-Steagall Act in '99, and it was Bill Clinton who officially went along with it. And you've had perfect integration between Bush's people, Bush 41, Clinton, Bush 43, and now Obama, president number 44. You've had perfect integration. It's a revolving door. The Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan, Citibank, cabal in the Republican arm of power, when the Democrats get back in, they leave government and go back into banking. And then the Democrats that were in banking, when the Democrats get in, they go into government. I mean, literally, it's a revolving door. It'd be like if the same sports team owner owned both teams and even had them in the same uniforms. And instead of fielding 11 players, they fielded 22. And then you went and watched a football game where the team played itself. And it was all completely contrived. Kind of like a Don King boxing match, but worse. I mean, literally, ladies and gentlemen, this is like having wind-up horses in a horse race. And well, this horse can wind up longer and faster. So we know this little gray pony with the white spot on its forehead named, Ginger Snaps is going to win today. I mean, this is a rigged system. This isn't capitalism. This isn't free market. You've got the upper echelons of the banking cartel. By the way, I had the former head of the Treasury on just last week, former head of policy, Dr. Paul Craig Robertson. He totally agreed. He's read the banking re-regulation bill that passed, and it allows the big mega banks to shut down and take over state banks, local banks, healthy banks that aren't in derivatives. And it surveils everything that U.S. citizens do. It controls our entire lives. Every bank account, every transfer, everything you purchase on a credit card, in live time, being watched by the regulators who are all a bunch of Bernie Madoff, Ken Lay types. I mean, and they didn't get rid of the removal of Glass-Steagall. It's still gone. They can do whatever they want. Investment banks, private banks, commercial banks, it doesn't matter. GMAC, anybody who wants to can basically set up a company and sell a bunch of derivatives. They could go out to the park and get dog droppings and put it in a box and have AIG AAA certified as solid gold investment, and they'll sell it to the yuppies, and so they'll make money when the yuppies buy it and when the local governments buy it. And then when it goes under, why, the banks will then loan the fiat money back to the municipality to get out of debt because they're in financial trouble because they don't have any real assets they've invested in.